Well, what we want people to realize is that gender clinics are trying to destroy what God made. That's
plain and simple.
If we just understand they are there not to make men and women, they are there to destroy God's design of man and woman. Jennifer Bowens and I got together and put this book together. I affectionately call it, This is Where the Drunk and the PhD Come Together to Make a Miraculous Book for Jesus. And so this book is designed to help you understand God made you perfect the way you are. You don't need body parts cut off. You don't need all this hormones. You don't need these things. And so it's critical for us to realize, they on their side say that, your body parts don't make you who you are, right? So if that's true, then why does cutting them off make you who you are?
Good point.
So you got to look at this and go, nothing they have makes any sense at all, except when we realize they are trying to, if you understand what they're doing, is to devalue, dehumanize, and destroy God's design of man and woman, and that's what transgenderism does. Nothing else. It devalues, dehumanizes, and destroys God's design. The book is to help keep that design intact, to honor and glorify the Lord Jesus Christ.
Walt, would you say that we're in the midst of a transgender movement, if you will? I mean, it does seem over the last 10 to 20 years, there's just been a spike, a proliferation of those that are entertaining or really attempting to live this transgender lifestyle. And you have these clinics that, and sometimes, and as we found, they want to keep it a secret because what's happening in these clinics is so horrific. So is this is there a coordinated effort? Because you've got more, especially young people, who are considering these errant ideas and embracing a quote-unquote gender other than their biological sex, and you have these all too willing accomplices in the so-called medical profession that are doing this work in transgender clinics. I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it seems like it's a bit too convenient.
Well, it's a $400 billion business. That's your answer.
There you go.
And so,
follow the money.
And so it's about the money, and what we realize is that there is no such thing as a transgender, because no one in all of world history has ever changed their gender. Hormones and surgery does not change a man into a woman or a woman into a man. That is factual. No one has ever transitioned, and what Jennifer and I point to is that this is not about gender dysphoria. It's about dysphoria, but it's not about your gender. It's about something else that we haven't talked about yet. It's, in my case, sexual abuse, physical abuse, being cross-dressed is psychologically and emotionally abused. So when you work with this population, you realize that there's always something that happens. So the question I always ask when I work with somebody is, just tell me what happened that caused you to not like who you are. Such a great question.
Yes, it is.
And then the second one, the follow-up is, tell me why you think you're going to be better off if you cut body parts off and fill yourself with hormones. They don't have the answer.
Well, and typically, aren't they worse off
Absolutely
after undergoing this than they were before?
Absolutely.
It's such a deception.
And in fact, you're 19 times more likely to commit suicide after taking hormones than surgery than you are if you go to a good psychologist and deal with the underlying comorbid disorders, which is usually PTSD or body dysmorphia or bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. All these things are very typical, and that's why when I partnered with Jennifer Bowens, who is a trauma therapist, we find that the vast majority of this population suffered some sort of trauma, and we call it little t trauma in the book and big T trauma, because even sometimes little t trauma, such as a child who's 10 or 12 years old, has established a great deal of friends in their neighborhood and their clique around them. Mom and dad moved to a new place, and they feel completely out of sorts. That's a little t trauma, and we've seen cases where they move to this new neighborhood, and the neighbor next door is a person identifying as trans and gloms onto their kid who never thought about it. But that's the way now the kid wants to have friends, and they start associating, and it becomes what we call a social contagion. And so they're doing it because their friends are doing it, not because they really are.